Hi everyone, welcome back. Hopefully you had a great weekend, and I am here to recreate a layout from our newest catalog, which is our July-August catalog that just started a few days ago, using the collection that you see on the on this front page, which is our Cape Cod collection. And this collection, I want to recreate this layout here that is listed. And luckily, the Home Office gave us a lot of the information about how they created this particular layout. And so I'm actually really excited to recreate this layout. I generally don't do single page layouts. I do like this single page layout and would probably do this as a single page layout, but I am actually going to modify it and I am going to make it into a double page layout. So let's first go through some of the things that are on this layout and that are part of this collection for Cape Cod. So the papers are the first things, so I'll pull those up first. And the papers are double-sided. All of Close to My Heart papers are double-sided. So there's this wave word paper, and then on the back side are these big graphical monotone pictures. And the background is kind of hard to see, but if you look at it, it actually looks like almost like a piece of wood behind it, like there's stripes and there's little speckles and things like that. So there's actually some texture and movement behind this paper as well. And then we have the wave, Happiness Comes in Waves. And so again, that with the great zip strip. We have the fern-like plants there. And then on the other side of that is the wood grained paper with the wave zip strip. And then the last one is the anchors and the stripes that you can have go either way. And then at the top are the anchor zip strips. So those are the papers that are used in this collection. And then this is the sticker sheet that's got a number of very great titles like Sun and Sea and Wild and Free, as well as a bunch of word, and then this fence that's down here on the bottom. And hopefully I'm actually in frame here. Okay, so those are the papers and the stickers that we're going to use. In addition, we're going to use some white daisy cardstock as part of this layout, and we're going to use Lagoon as our base. So if we go back and look at this particular layout, it's got a Lagoon base, it's got a white daisy top, it's got some of the papers that are part of this collection, right? So it's got the anchor paper here, it's got the stripe paper as well, right? Using the ray, making it almost like a ray of the sun. And then it's got our palm fronds, and then down here at the bottom again is some more of the palm, as well as the word art, the word paper art here. So, and then down here at the very bottom, hopefully you can kind of see this, it's a little bit hard to see, I'm a little far away, is that piece of sticker that goes all the way across the bottom of the fence. So hopefully, it's hard to see. I'll see if I can get a little closer and see if you guys can see that. Hopefully that's helpful. So again, those are the pieces. In addition, there's a lot of extra things that are part of this. So these seagulls are part of the die cuts that are also something you can buy with this kit, along with the title The Beach. There are additional die cuts over here, as well as acrylic pieces. And then we've got this piece of coral here, which is actually from the Cape Cod scrapbooking stamp and thin cut set. So the stamp here and the thin cut is this coral piece here. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of walk through a few of the pieces here before I got into what I was going to do, or how I used that stamp. All right, so if I take this and I pull out the thin cuts, or sorry, the embellishment pack. This is the embellishment pack that is part of this Cape Cod set. So there is the toffee colored pieces, and I've punched out a bunch of pieces already that we're going to use in this set. There is it's not really white. This is more like a creamy white, so like a French vanilla white. And again, I've punched out a bunch of pieces from this already. And then the last piece that comes as the embellishments for Cape Cod are these acrylic pieces. So these acrylic pieces are, again, a variety of different shapes and sizes of stars and other sea things like seagulls. There's a seagull here. There's palm trees. There's little fish. So again, a wide variety of embellishments. What I have done to prep is I actually pulled out all the embellishments that I'm going to use, and I've put them in this little container so that I have them handy, because some of them are kind of small. And so I want to make sure that I don't lose any of them as I'm prepping them. So I just put them in a little container and have them set aside. All right, a couple of other things that we are going to be using to make this is, you can see here that we've got some background of ink. And I'm going to be using Peacock Feather, which is a distressed oxide ink. They actually use Peacock Feather as well as Speckled Egg, but I don't have Speckled Egg, so I'm going to just work with Peacock Feather as my color that I'm going to use on this particular layout. Another thing that they used is a white gel pen. It is a little bit hard to see in this, but there are rays that are coming between these pieces, and they've colored the seagulls. They've added a little bit to the seagulls, and to this particular seashell they've added some dots. So again, the white gel pen, the distressed oxide inks, and then this piece of coral was stamped and thin cut, and I'm going to talk about this separately in just a minute. All right, so this is a one-page layout, and I said I wanted to make a two-page layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how I sort of decided to do that in multiple steps. The first step I'm going to do is talk about how I handled the rays and how I handled the layout itself. Then what I'm going to come back and do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the blending of the distressed oxide inks, the coloring of the various different pieces, and we'll do that as a separate, and then we'll do a bit of assembly at the end. So hopefully all of that makes sense, and I am going to come right back, clean up my space a little bit, get a little bit organized, and I will come right back and we'll start digging into how I decided to do a two-page layout with this. So I'm back. I've kind of got everything set up here. Again, my idea is that I want to take this layout and I want to spread it across 2 pages. And so what I tried to do is I decided I wanted to do some dry runs before I started cutting this paper. That way I can make sure that it's kind of the way I want it, and I can adjust as necessary now before I actually use my paper. Oops, sorry about that. And I can make some adjustments to the size pictures that I want and how I want this all to lay out. So in this case, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rays, and I'm going to use about the same amount, but I'm going to spread it across 2 pages. Now I am going to do this on a white daisy piece of paper, but you can't see white on white, and I just took scrap white daisy paper that I had, and I created these rays. I will talk about the size and everything with these in just a moment, but I essentially created a bunch of different rays that I could lay out and see how I liked it. All right, so if I take that same idea and I start in the middle like this, I can lay out how I might want to have these on my page. And I can decide how far apart I want them, what angles I want them at, and then I can lay down my pictures so that I have an idea of what it is that I'm trying to do with this. So again, the whole idea behind this dry layout is to just make sure that I like my spacing, that I like the idea of creating a 2-page layout from this, right? Because it may be that I don't like it once I'm done. And so all I'm doing is I'm just taking these rays that I created, or these triangles, these long triangles that I've created, and now I'm going to just start playing around with angles, right? I'm going to start playing around and seeing, can I get this to be somewhat proportional and create the feeling of that layout in the same way that they have pictured it here. So that's kind of my goal with this. And then once I've gotten to that point, then I can start picking out what kind of picture sizes I want to do. I do like the idea of having one focal picture on one side and then having some other supporting pictures on the other side. So this is where I'm going to pull out my handy placeholders. These we get in our scrapbooking kits that we offer, and so I have a lot of these because I don't always use them on my I usually don't use them as backers when I'm actually creating these. So again, I'm just sort of playing around with angles here, just trying to see spacing wise, do I like this? I want them to be somewhat proportional in creating. All right, and then I'm going to again focus on one focal picture on this side, and then I'm going to have what I think will be some additional photos on this side. And I'm size-wise, I've got a bunch of 3x4s. And I am looking for odd numbers. And let me see, do I have another photo placeholder? I'm looking for one more photo placeholder if I've got it. And I'm not seeing the one I'm looking for. Oh wait, there it is. There's one that I can use. So again, just sort of playing around with sizes. I might put another photo over on the left side similarly, but there's a lot going on the left side with the words, with the cluster here, the beach. So I'm really going to try and mimic that on this particular layout. And so I might, again, not do that, but change up maybe some photo sizes here and create that same idea. So once I've kind of got to this point and I'm kind of happy with how many pictures I have, that the rays are going to work if I go all the way across in that same manner. Again, I'll probably play a little bit more around with this. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got 8. I've got one additional ray than what they had in theirs. This is also going to have a background to it, so this is going to cover up these points that I have, and they are actually sitting under the picture but on top of the frame that's around that picture. So that's also going to be something that I'm going to consider, and I can pretty much say that overall I think this will work. Again, I'm going to sort of play with angles maybe a little bit more when I get to actually laying these down and try and create maybe some more extreme angles on these outer ones, just to have them sort of all pointing in. But the idea is I kind of understand what I'm doing now. I like how this is laying out, And so I can move on and I can take a picture of this so I can reference it. So usually what I'll do is I'll take a picture of this on my phone, and then I'll have my phone by my side so that I can reference this, and then I can start creating my layout. So my next step is to start cutting down my base page and cutting my white daisy. My white daisy, again, is slightly smaller than my background paper, that is Lagoon, and then white daisy. So I'm going to clean this up now that I'm pretty happy with this potential layout, and we'll start playing around some more with this, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to take that next step to get the white daisy ready, and how you're going to cut your white daisy to fit on top of your Lagoon background. So I've brought out my Lagoon paper and I've got my white daisy paper underneath it. So the first two things I want to do to prep to get ready for this is I actually want to take the center out of the Lagoon paper. And this is called gutting. And this is a way to not only save paper, but also a way to take that inside paper and use it as mats for the rest of your layout. I don't need this because I'm going to have that white daisy sitting on top. And so there's no reason for me to layer multiple layers of cardstock, which is quite thick and heavy, when I can gut it out and use it for something else. So that's essentially what I've done here. I've created a 1-inch border, and you do that by putting the paper in to your trimmer at 1 inch, and then you use your guide on your actual trimmer here, and hopefully it's kind of hard to see, but you go from 1 then down to 11 for a 12-inch piece of paper, and then you rotate and you do that again, and every time you rotate then you end up with a nice clean cut that gives you a gutted piece of paper that you can then layer on top of. So again, reduces waste, or doesn't add weight to your layout, but it also helps in that you can use that inside for other things. So that's really important. So that was number one. That's the first thing I did. The second thing I did is I need to cut down my white daisy. Going back and looking at that layout, it has a border. And if I was doing a single layout, I would just take an eighth of an inch off of two sides of the white daisy, and then I would get that very narrow border that you see here. But because I'm actually doing a 2-page layout, I want to butt the white daisy up against the other piece of white daisy on the accompanying page. I do not want to have this border or this break, because I want those rays to go all the way across. I want it to be seamless. I want to look like it's one continuous set of rays, and if I left that border, I wouldn't get that effect, essentially. So what I want to do is I want to cut the white daisy a little bit differently. I want to cut one side at 1/8 of an inch, and then I want to rotate the paper and cut it at 1/16 of an inch. So that way I still get this nice narrow top and bottom, but this one side will be, I'll be able to be flush with the other side of the layout. So hopefully that makes sense. So how do I do that? So I'm going to take my white daisy and I'm going to put it into my trimmer, and I'm going to do the first cut I'm going to do at that, actually I think it's actually 1/4 of an inch now that I'm looking at it. It's at 1/4 of an inch, not 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go in at 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go to the right side of my trimmer up to that first solid black line. That's 1/4 of an inch. Sorry, I stated that wrong. So I'm going to trim that 1/4 of an inch off, and that's scrap. I'm going to just throw that away. Then I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to do 1/2 of 1/4 of an inch. 1/2 of 1/4 is 1/8, which is on your trimmer. If you look, it's going to be this long, heavier black line. again, it's focusing. There we go. I want to put it there. I want to do 1/2 of a 1/4 of an inch. So I've rotated my paper 90 degrees, and then I'm going to put my paper in at that 1/4 of an inch, or that 1/8 of an inch mark, and then I'm going to trim that up. So you can see that what I have left, I have one that's a 1/4 and one that's 1/2 of that amount. Okay? And that will then allow me, when I actually put these together, if I put these two pieces out, like so, I will be able to butt these together here and still get that reveal that I'm looking for on this layout. And that's really important, so that it looks like it's one continuous layout. And again, it's not behaving too well, getting it all lined up, but that's the idea. I've got that border all the way around my layout. So looking like it is a continuous page. Sorry, it's just not behaving there. A continuous page with that thin border all the way around. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to do one side of the white daisy at a 1/4 of an inch, and then rotate it 190, and then we're going to do 1/8 of an inch as the next cut. So slightly smaller, so that we have an even border all the way around. Now that we have our paper cut, now we're going to start talking about how are we going to prep this, some of these pieces that we need to prep in this layout. So we've got a couple of things we need to prep. We need to prep this background on the white daisy, right? So that's step number one. But we also have some prep work on some of the pieces that are part of the embellishments. So this beach is that creamy color, but they have, again, used the distressed oxide inks to color that in. The starfish and the shell, again, are colored. There's a little bit of coloring around the other toffee pieces, and then we have this piece here that is the die cut from the stamp set. So we have a couple of prep things we need to do with these, and we have the prep of the actual pieces here. So we're going to start working on that next. First things first, we're going to work on these two pieces. So we're going to work on these papers. Now I am using my all-purpose mat, which is easy to clean up with just a baby wipe, paper towels, things like that. And I've got a piece of scrap paper. And what I want to do is I'm actually going to kind of lay these together so that, and I know that it might be hard because it might not be easy to see. White on white doesn't tend to like to match that, but I'm going to take my peacock feathers and I'm going to take a brush. Now, distressed oxide inks are very, what do I want to say? They're heavily pigmented, and that means that, and I'm just rotating this just to see if my cuts are not quite lining up. So I think that's going to be the best. So I want to be careful. There is a lot of ink already on this brush from previous times that I've used it. And that's another reason why I also have some scratch papers, so that, as you can see, I actually rubbed a lot off already that was already on this brush from previous uses. Now I know when I laid out my rays that they were kind of going like this. And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to lightly start laying down ink just based off of what's on here. I haven't added any ink to this at all, and I'm just starting to lay some color down. It's always better to start light, and then you can add more color to it. It's hard to take away color. Okay, so you really want to be very careful. Now, like I said, I've taken a lot of the color off of this already, and so I'm pushing a little bit harder, but I'm just trying to use up the ink that is already on this brush. And I'm just eyeballing kind of where I ended those rays and how high up I want this to go. There is no right or wrong when you're dealing with this. So, you know, you can very much play around with it. And if you don't like it, flip the paper over. Start again. Okay, no one's going to see the backside. It's going to be all covered up when you put it into the page protector and when you put it on top of that base piece. So again, I'm trying to do this so that it is covering that whole area, trying to create a little bit of lightness and darkness, fanning out lighter at the ends over here, fanning out light up here at the top. And then if I go back and I kind of look at what they've done, they've left some light up there. I went a little darker. That's okay, not a problem. I'm going to come down just a little bit farther down over here. I think I'm going to come down a little farther over here. And like I said, this is all the ink that was left from a previous use. Essentially what you would do is you tap into your ink. Tap into your ink. I usually will kind of tap it off. Again, you can tap it off onto this, and then you can gently come in to your layout or to your piece that you're trying to color to add the additional color. This is a pigment ink, so it does take a little bit of time to dry, so you want to be aware of that as you're using it. And it is a distressed oxide, which means what we can do here is we can add water to create a reaction to this. And again, I'm just going over some areas, just trying to smooth things out, trying to add a little bit more color here and there, just tapping it off, just seeing where I might want some more color. These blend beautifully together with other distressed oxide inks as well, so that's really nice to mix colors and to create your own. But I think I'm pretty happy with this in general. All right, I think I'm going to stop there for this one, and we're going to put that aside for right now. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I actually want to activate a little bit of this distressed oxide. And so I just have a plain water bottle. This is a cheap dollar store water bottle. And I'm going to just do some quick sprays. Now, if you do little dots, you're going to get little sprays. So you can actually get closer and you can create more reaction with some bigger droplets, which I've kind of done here. I think I want to do a little bit more there, maybe a little bit more there. That was a little bit much, but that'll get a nice big reaction. And you can kind of already see some of the reaction happening, hopefully, by just that water. And you can see that it's created some definition. And I think I'm going to do a little bit more right here. Kind of see. You don't want to saturate the paper, but you want to, try and get some of that reaction to happen. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that for right now. And so we're going to just set that aside to dry. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to prep these pieces that are part of the embellishments. And so that's when we're going to pull out some of these pieces. So we've got the starfish, a few of the titles. We don't need to worry about those pieces right now. We'll just dump out the rest of those. All right, and so we want to do some coloring, or we want to add some dimension to these pieces. So how are we going to do that? Well, there's a couple of ways. A lot of it's going to be ink blending, and in this case, the beach is again using that same peacock feathers. So we're going to start there, but you'll notice it's darker at the bottom and a little bit lighter at the top. So we're going to again do this on our all-purpose mat, because this will allow us to clean it up really easily. I am going to be pretty gentle with this because it is a small piece and I don't want to damage it by pushing too hard or creating issues. So I'm going to just hold it with my fingers and I'm going to just start adding some color. Again, starting at the bottom where I want it to be heavier, and then I can lighten it up with my pressure as I come further to the top. So again, getting most of the color there at the bottom, making sure I've got some deeper color, and as you can see, I'm just gently rubbing it and picking up the sponge. I'm not dragging it. I'm doing circles, but I'm picking it up as I move. This isn't the most delicate piece, but it's delicate enough that I want to be careful. All right, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to, and this is where your fingers are probably going to get a little bit inky, so you want to be careful. I'm actually going to grab a paper towel. And then I'm going to just gently add some color to the top. Now instead of circular, I'm doing short strokes up. Again, I want to add just some color, but I want it to be faded. I don't want it to be too heavy, right? So I want to create that ombre look, I guess is the best way. So then I'm going to come back in, and I think I'm going to add just a little bit more heaviness through the middle. Just to create a little bit more definition in some places here. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. I think we might just put a little bit more here on these tops. And I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Now I think they did layer 2 colors on this particular one, but since I don't have that second color, I'm not going to worry about it. It's close enough. I like it. I like the definition of different colors, and I think it looks, it looks very nice. So I'm going to just leave it like that. All right, so we're all done with that peacock feathers. We don't need that anymore. So now we're going to look at adding these pieces, the color to the starfish and to some of these other pieces that we have here. Now what I did is I was trying to figure out what color did they use, because they didn't really give us a color combination. And so I pulled out from my stack, looking at this, I said, okay, that might be papaya. It could be papaya. It could be desert rose. It might be melon, but this looks too bright. When I looked at this, I said, that's too bright. So I kind of put that one aside and said, nope, that one doesn't quite work. That looks too bright. And then I had paprika. So I thought, okay, one of these 3 is probably this color. I wasn't sure which one was which. So what I did is I took, again, another piece of white daisy, and we'll shove some of these things up. And I actually created I die cut all these out already. I actually decided to start working and seeing which of these might be the closest to that one. Now again, you don't have to match. You don't have to do what I just did. You could just say, you know what, I have this color, it's close enough, it's coral, and I don't need to worry about, doing anything more than that. And that's fine. Don't feel like you have to exactly match it. If you have the stamp set and you have one of these colors, you can make it work. No one's going to know. So just so you know what the process I went through, I started with the papaya because looking at it, I thought, oh, that's pretty close. So this was first generation papaya, and then these two are second generation papaya. And they are pretty darn close. They're pretty close. But this looked a little bit more brown than the papaya. The papaya had a little bit more pink in it. So then I went to paprika, and this was first generation paprika, which I thought, oh, that's a little too heavy. But it might layer nice, so I might keep it. And so then I did a second generation paprika, which is this one. And I thought, oh, that's it. The paprika has a little bit more brown in it than the pink or the red. And so it really felt like this was what they had done on this particular layout. So I went ahead and I did a couple more second generations, but these will layer together with the papaya just fine. Like if I wanted to lay these together, I could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. That will work perfectly fine. If I wanted to take the darker ones, the first generation stamping, and layer it with that. Again, coral comes in so many different colors that there's no right or wrong. So I went ahead and I die cut all of these out so that I could then just play around with them as we were building the balance of the layout. So none of this is going to go to waste. It was just practicing and trying out colors and seeing what colors would work. So once I identified that I kind of liked the paprika better than the papaya, I'm going to drop those in my little bucket. Then I have the coloring against these. And so to keep the colors sort of consistent, and since I know I'm probably going to be using the paprika and not the papaya necessarily, I'm going to color these guys up lightly with, again, the paprika. And I'm actually cleaning up my space here because I forgot to do that so that I don't transfer any of that peacock feathers onto these. So I'm going to take my, I'm going to go ahead and take my paprika. I'm going to have my scratch piece of paper here, and I'm going to use, this time I'm going to use a dome foam, and I'm going to tap in, and then I'm going to tap off over on my scratch piece of paper because I don't want it that dark. Okay, I'm just trying to add a little bit of color. And so, again, tap off, add a little bit of color here. Not too heavy, but I'm going to be heavier on the ends than I am necessarily in the middle. Hopefully, all goes well. Again, you could do this with a blending brush as well, but I went ahead and picked up the foam dauber in this case. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to do the shells as well, same thing. The difference between using the dauber versus, or the dome, and using the brush is that this is going to give you a little bit of texture. That went a little bit heavy. I forgot to tap off, but that's okay. We can make it work. So that's the biggest difference between these, is that the foam is going to give you a little bit of texturing that you wouldn't necessarily get with the brush. So we'll just add that. And again, we could do multiple colors if we wanted to. We could come in with the paprika if we wanted to and add some additional color. But I think I'm going to leave it at that. All right. So that is our coloring piece. The last thing we need to do is add our white gel pen to a few of these pieces. So the white gel pen, oh wait, sorry, I was actually going to also do some distressing on this. So in these I want to use toffee, and not distressing per se, but I want to add some color, some additional depth of color to these pieces. And so I will grab another, I don't know if I do have toffee, so I already have a toffee dome. So I'm going to just grab another and just switch this out. These are really nice because you can switch them out. And same thing, I'm going to tap into the ink, I'm going to tap it off, and then on these guys I'm going to just run the edges and come in just a little bit into the middle. So slightly different than how I did the others. So this is, by doing this, I'm going to just add some dimension and some depth to these shells, creating, and then I'm going to put, just tap a little bit in that middle there section. And this will really help like make these stand out against the white even more. Again, just trying to get into these edges, trying to be gentle, not to bend them too much. Creating some definition and depth of color, because nothing is just one color in the world. And then again, just going to do some light taps there. This one I'm going to be really careful with because it is very fine. It's very thin. So again, I'm going to just do some light movement. I'm not going to try and do the whole thing. I'm just going to try and create some depth in this by just tapping and gently pulling up, just to create that dimension. And then this last piece, which is the sign, I'm going to just go around the edges. All right. So I think we're good there. So we've done our prep for all of those, and now we can start adding the gel pen. So the gel pen is on the birds and is on this seashell. So this is just, again, giving movement and definition. So I'm taking the gel pen and just adding a bit of highlights on the wings, like the sun is shining on it, and then a little bit on the tail here. I'm using a 08 gel pen, which is just the one I happened to grab. You could use a thinner one if you needed, if that's what you had. Again, these gel pens are really helpful just to add some dimension and movement to flat pieces. This is probably something I'm not very good at. If it wasn't on the actual layout, I probably wouldn't even think about doing it. All right, so again, there's just some dots going around here. So just creating some dots. Mine are not very circular. Again, I don't consider myself an artist. I just consider myself a crafter, and so I don't always do things exactly the way the artists might do it. All right, so I'm thinking I am, let's add a few more here. Okay, I think that's good. All right. So that's the gel pen. And the other pieces, the acrylic pieces, they already have some lines and things in them, so we don't really have to do any prep work for those. So we've got our beach, we've got our different sea life, and our seagulls, and we have our coral that we've already got. So the next thing is that we need to cut out our rays, and we need to prep the bottom pieces here. So I will again clean this up, and I will be back to show you how to do that. Let's start cutting these rays now. So there's 3 different patterns that you're seeing on the rays. One of the patterns is the stripe pattern, and on the other side of the stripe pattern is that anchor pattern. You'll notice that they have the stripes going horizontally versus vertically. The reason they're doing that is because we're going to be flipping that paper over. And so if you lay the paper horizontally, if you lay the stripes so they're going horizontally, the anchors will be going the right direction when you cut this. If you cut the stripes going vertically, then your anchors are going to be going the wrong direction, as you can see here, hopefully, when you're looking at this. So that's why, sometimes it is important to take a look at the direction of the paper on the front as well as the back, so that you can see that it makes the most sense to cut this with the stripes going vertically versus horizontally, so that you get those anchors going the right direction when you make these particular rays. The other paper we're going to use is, again, the fern paper. The other side is that wood texture paper. We don't have to worry about a directionality on this particular one, because we are not using this paper for the rays. We're only using it for the bottom and then up here at the top. So what are the sizes? The sizes that we were given for these rays was 1 1/4 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches long. I'm actually going to make mine just slightly shorter because of the way that I'm doing my layout. I'm going to do 5 inches long by 1 1/4 inches wide. So I'm actually going to cut this at 1 1/4 inches. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to start at 1 1/4. And I'm going to go ahead and slice that way. Then I'm going to cut this at 5, and this is going to leave me a scrap, which I will probably use in another way on another layout. So I'm going to just set that aside. Once I have that, now I need to cut this on the diagonal. I need to split this in half so I can create that ray shape. And to do that, I'm going to lay this so that it is sitting in that trough, so that when I cut, I'm actually going to go from point to point to create this ray. I am going to lay my blade down in the middle versus trying to come in from the ends, because if I try and come in from the ends, then I will damage those points. So I'm going to go up to the top, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom. And now I have a ray. And the nice thing is I can flip this over, right? I can use one for one and one for the other. And I've got that. Now they've got 3 stripes and 2 anchors. I'm going to cut this again. I'm probably going to have a few more in mind because I need to add a couple more to my ray, because I'm trying to cover a longer stretch, right? I'm going over 2 pages. So again, I cut it at 1 1/4, and now I am going to put this in my cutter. I'm going to lay it. I'm going to align it so that I can get those points. Start in the middle, go up, and then come down. And that one didn't quite cut exactly right. I shifted by accident, but again, no one's going to know. It's going to be hidden. So now I've got those, and I'm going to do 2 of these. So in this case, they only did 1, but I'm going to go ahead and do 2 of these as well. So again, 1 1/4. I'm going to cut that. Cut it at 5. Put that piece aside, and then we're going to lay it in and we're going to cut this again. Just trying to get it aligned well so I get a good cut. Start in the middle. Oops, that shifted. Let's get that back. Lift this up again so we can shift it. Okay. Okay. So we got 2 of those. We're going to do 1 more of those. I might do another set just so I've got some extras. We'll see here. So 1 1¼ by 5, and we'll cut this, and we'll be good to go on those. Sometimes it's hard. The hardest thing is getting it lined up. Okay, so there we go. So now we should have, I believe, 8, if I did that right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when I'm looking at this, I've got 2 of the stripes, I've got 2 of the anchors, and I've got 4 of the leaves. So I think I'm actually this is at 5 inches already. I think I'm going to, did I cut that wrong? I think I'm going to cut one of these scraps because I think I'm going to be able to play with that a little bit size-wise. Because I actually made those too long. I didn't cut the 5-inch side, I cut the longer side. Haha, there we go. So we are going to definitely have longer rays than because I did that wrong. This is where you just go with the flow. I threw away the short side, I threw away the 5-inch side, and I kept the long side and cut the long side. So that was a mistake. But I'm going to just cut 1 more of these. Oops. Try that again. One of these shorter ones, and hopefully we can make it work just so that we have a couple of extra rays to play with. Again, I could go back and cut all of those shorter ones, but I don't want to waste the paper. So we're just going to make this work. We're gonna figure out how to make this work. Okay, with the longer ones and the shorter ones. So a little bit of a mistake there, but I think you understand. When you do your slicing and you lay out your paper, you want to take the short piece and save the long piece. And I did the exact opposite. I took the short piece and put it to the side, and I kept the long piece. So don't make my mistake, but there are no mistakes in scrapbooking. We will make it work. All we'll end up doing is probably cutting off some of these tips so that they work better. It's not a big deal. All right, so I've got those. The other pieces I need is an 11 and 11¼ piece of the fern paper, and I need an 11¼ inch long wave paper. Again, the wave paper is got a direction, so you need to be careful about this, and we're going to tear this. So what I'm going to do, just looking at this, I think I'm going to do a 1 inch wide of the word paper that we can tear, and I'm going to do a 1½ inch wide fern. And I'm just guesstimating here. I'm not like, there are no dimensions on that. So there is nothing that I have to go on other than I'm putting this at the bottom of the page, and I don't need that much, but I need enough that I can tear it and I can create sort of these these pieces here. So let's talk about the tearing. If I tear towards myself, I'm going to get the white core. And so that's essentially what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just start tearing, and if I hold it close to in my hands, I'm going to get a controlled tear. If I keep things farther away, I'm going to get a less controlled tear. So this is essentially what I'm doing here, is just trying to hold it tight and then creating a somewhat controlled tear and creating some depth on that piece. This I need to cut down a little bit shorter. I need to cut it down to 11 1/4. I forgot to do that. So we're going to take that down to 11 1/4. And we've got our torn piece. Now we could use this piece on something else. We could use the backside on something, so we're going to go ahead and save that. All right, so this one, again, we're going to tear this one. Same thing, if you tear towards yourself, you are going to get that white showing, and so that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to tear towards myself, try and create a lot of ripples, again mimicking sand or mimicking the ocean here, showing those words. Right? And so we've got some very fun things there. Again, we're going to cut this to 11 1/4. Take off that little bit. Now this piece I'm not going to save. Well, actually I might be able to do something with that. We will save that. All right, and so now we've got our waves. Now the thing is, I need to do that again on the other side, right? I need to have this continue. So I need to do this one more time. So we're going to take 1 1/2. We're going to do 1 1/2 on this. Same thing. And we're going to do 1 inch on the wave boards. Just seeing which side I like better with the words. I think I like this side better, so we're going to cut on this side to get a little bit more color. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to tear towards ourselves. Well, let's cut this first to 11 1/4. Make it a little bit easier on ourselves from a tearing perspective. And we're just going to create the tear. Again, we'll save that other side because we can probably use that on another layout. And on this one, making sure we're tearing the right direction so that the words are actually showing. And you want to not be too controlled. Kind of depends on how you like the look of your tears, if you want it to be more rough or more controlled. Kind of either way works. Okay, so now we've got our 4 pieces that we need for that. So we are very close. We are ready to assemble this, other than one last thing, which is cutting this piece for the picture. So this picture is a 4x6 picture. This looks to be more of a 1/2 inch border around. A lot of times we'll do a narrower border for a frame, but this is a much heftier frame, and that looks like that's about a 1/2 inch. So we would want to cut this by 4.5 by 6.5. Now if I do 4.5 by 6.5, I can take out my ruler and I can say, okay, so this is 6.5, and if I measure it, is that big enough, right? Do I like that look? And I'm actually thinking I want to go a little bit bigger even than that, because if I do this if I put this on something that would be 6.5 on there, you know, I've got a 1/4 inch border all the way around. And I might actually want, no, maybe I do want a 1/4 inch. Again, I'm just playing around here, just trying to see, do I like the width of the border? So I do think 4.5, 6.5 is going to work for me. Just trying to decide if I want to change that at all. So if I do 4.5 by 6.5, again, I'm just visualizing this as I'm putting it down on my paper to see, this is where it's going to cut. Do I feel like that's enough of a border? And I do think that that's probably good. So we'll do 4.5 by 6.5. The problem with this trimmer is that that 1/2 inch is kind of in a weird place. So it's really hard to see where a 1/2 inch is going to be on the 6. So I'm going to again just lay this down on top and just kind of eyeball it and say that we are right there. I think that right there is the right one, the right measurement. Okay, so now we've got this piece cut. And I'm pretty happy with that sizing. I think that's pretty darn close. So 4.5 by 6.5. All right, so that's the prep for that. The last prep that we have to do is the other side, and once I get to that side, then I'll decide how I want to lay out my photo placeholders, or my photo mats that I want to use. But for right now, we can start building this particular layout. We're very close, guys, very close. So I'll clean this up and I will be back in just a second. All right, so I've started to put together the layout. I started with the right side and I've laid down the white daisy that we prepped earlier, again on top of the cut out piece of lagoon. And what I've done is I've actually butted up the lagoon for the left hand side up against the lagoon of the right hand side, because what I want to do is when I'm doing this layout, I want to make sure that these two white pieces are matching up as close as I possibly can. I want them to be lined up and as close to a match as possible. And so by doing this, I'm more likely to get a cohesive side by side, if you can see that. Looks like my reveal is a little bit off, but again, I'm probably the only one that's going to notice that, and I can possibly adjust it a little bit. Again, if you don't push too hard on your adhesive, most of the time you can lift it up and you can make a few adjustments. So I'm just seeing if I can adjust that anyway, but not too much. Okay, so now I'm actually in a good spot. I'm happy with that, and we're going to move on to our next step, which is actually putting down our rays. And if you remember, I cut some wrong. So we are going to have to do some additional cutting in order for this to work. And I actually think what I might do first is I think I'm going to put the bottom pieces on first, just so I have a frame of reference, and then that will give me a better idea of how I want this to lay out. All right, so we're going to grab a couple of pieces first. The first thing we want to lay down is from the sticker sheet, which is that very bottom piece that has the fence on it. So we're going to grab that, and this is going to go all the way across the bottom. At the very, very bottom, we're not going to show any of that white border. So the fact that this is a little bit off of being the right reveal is not a problem, because we're actually going to cover that up. All right, so we're going to lay that down first. Then we're going to lay down this piece on this side, and we probably need to actually change that up. I probably should have laid down, I'm not going to push this one down like I did the last one, because we're actually going to want to slide some pieces under this. So we're going to just gently try and lift this up a little bit so that we can slide some of these pieces in. So we're going to go ahead and just gently try and slide in this piece. And I cut this a little bit short, so that's okay. We're just going to leave it as is. I'm just going to try and lift this up just a little bit more so I can slide that piece in. If you pull at an angle, a 45-degree angle, you will generally be able to lift these pieces up, So I'm actually going to change this. If you have a spatula, a good spatula tool, you can also use that sometimes, but I do find just pulling at a 45-degree angle does the job. So we're actually going to just leave that, and we're going to actually put down this other piece first. So I know that we're going to tuck in this word behind it. So where I'm going to put the adhesive on this is going to be at the bottom, so that I have space to tuck this in. And again, I'm going to come pretty low to this. And I'm probably going to go grab that piece that I actually threw away over here, and I'm going to go ahead and tear that and add it in, and nobody will be the wiser. Just so I can get to the edge of the paper there. All right, so then we're going to put this piece down on top of that, and we're going to actually pull this up just a tad so that we're actually hiding that little mistake. Again, like I said, there's no mistakes in scrapbooking. It's just adjustments and artistic preference. So we're going to put that down like that. Then we're going to take one of these waves, and we're going to put adhesive on that, and we're going to slide it underneath this piece that we left space on. Now I'm noticing my hands were a little bit dirty, and some of this paper got a little bit dirty, but that's okay. Again, something to watch out for when you're crafting is, especially when you're working with white, that sometimes you need to go clean your hands, especially if you have been using inks and things. All right, so the same thing here. We're going to go ahead and put adhesive at the bottom of this one. Gonna actually make a little bit of a tear here to try and match a little bit closer to the other piece. Here, and then just seeing if I have another little piece of this that I can use, but I think we'll just let this one drop off. We'll add this little piece here. Actually, no, we got that piece there. Let's do this. Again, like I said, no accidents. All we're doing is just making some adjustments. And no one is going to know that this was not the way it was supposed to be. All right, we'll put the sticker back down just so that we have that. Again, lining it up. Okay, and then we've got the waves. So we'll add this. And we're going to slide that under to hide that straight line. Because we don't want to see that straight line. We want to see this, and then this guy. Slide that under there. And that can just drop off like that. Okay, so there we go. We've got now our paper. Again, not quite matching what's here, but I think it looks fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think it looks very, very much in line with what the layout is that they built here. Again, you're never going to do 100% of exactly the same. So don't worry about that. All right, so now we can take our rays and we can start laying those out. And we can start taking a look at how we want these. So I want to make sure I've got my long ones and my short ones in the right. So we're going to do this like that. Going to take an anchor like that. Let's take one of, oops. Again, we're trying to make sure that we're being consistent. Let's see, we might be able to use a small one here and hide that. And then let's do another one of those. And let's just spread these guys out a little bit. Just trying to remember, I'm trying to remember, right, that we've got that we're coming onto the other side, so we really want to be able to have the right angles versus just having that half circle this way. We're trying to spread that half circle around. Okay, so then I think we'll do that guy. That one. We can do that one. That one goes up a little bit higher. And then this one. And we'll flip that one. I'm trying to decide which way I like this better. I think I like it like that. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so let's just bring in our photo placeholder. And actually we did okay. We didn't mess it up too much. And so these are the ones where we need the photos. We need to have our mat here. Just making sure we're missing one of my photo placeholders. Okay, we'll find that in a minute, but okay. So I do think what we want to do here, I am thinking that I might want to do the wood again on this side. Just because I need, again, the mirroring of things that you do on one side, you want to make sure that you've got something similar on the other side. So I don't really have this wood pattern right now on that side. And so I think I need to go ahead and add that on this side as well. And again, I'm just playing with these rays because I wasn't too happy with the angles there. So in this case, I'm not sure if I want to just do it on top of that one picture, or if I want to do it more as a holding for all of those pictures, if that makes sense. So what I'm thinking is that I would like to actually sort of create a cluster on this, and this is where I do need that other, there it is, my other placeholder. I think I need to create a cluster Again, I'm just trying to look for balance here. I'm just trying to see, can I balance this? If I do it like that, then I have a place to put maybe some embellishments here. And so then I'm going to measure this so that I can cut it. I don't want too much of a gap, meaning I don't want a huge gap. I just want a little bit of a gap compared to the other one that we had. So again, just playing with this. Sorry, this is going to be a long video. I do apologize. Okay, so let's just take a look and see what we have here. So if we did 9, it's looking like maybe if we do it simple, if we do 9.5 by we'll do it simple, 9.5 by 7.5. Again, just I like easy numbers, so we're going to go with 9.5 by 7.5. So we're just going to cut off the zip strip. I am not known for getting my numbers right to save paper, so I am not a scrapbooker who is necessarily great at the math and gets the most out of the paper. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort on my part, and honestly, I would rather just use up the scraps that are left and not try to map it out. It's just not one of my fortes. It's not something that I'm great at. So that's why you might see me like butcher paper and not worry about it, because that again is just not my skill set, is working out all of the math to get the most out of the paper. All right, I'm liking that. I do think I need to move this down a little further so that these rays can show a bit more. Again, we'll probably do the same thing where we'll lay them on top of this piece. And this is just doing a dry fit, which is always a good idea if you are not sure about how you want something to lay out. And we will end up cutting that ray most likely. And then we've got that guy and this one. And this just really helps you just visualize, and do you like something? Do you need to change something with your layout, right? Doing these dry fits just really helps you visualize where things are. Are you happy with them? Do you want them to move someplace else? Kind of like I'm doing here, and then you can end up, hopefully at the end of the day, liking your end result. Okay, so right now there's too much space on that one. I need to move these around just a bit more, create better visual spacing. Again, I think this one like that. This is a bigger space, so I think that's why I'm not quite liking it as much. So I want to move these rays just a little bit closer together. Maybe just make that one shorter that way. Okay. I might just pull down these ones down here to create a smaller edge and have a bigger edge up here as well. I think that will balance it a little bit better as well. All right, so I think I'm pretty happy with this. What I'm going to do is go ahead and I see that I'm missing some color over here at the edge, so I think I'm going to go back here and I'm going to sort of lift this and shift it. And I think I need to add in some additional color over here because I didn't expect to use that much. So again, I still have a lot of ink left on that particular peacock feathers. And so just by kind of shifting over this piece, I can shift it back. I can say, hey, do I like that? And now that I've got that color over here, I'm feeling like it's a little bit more balanced as far as not having any color over there before was feeling a little bit light. I do think I want to go again up here a little bit more. There we go. I think that's good. And I do think I need a little bit more color up here as well. So then we can bring that back up. Again, this is where dry fitting really helps you with that visualization and being able to see, hey, do I have everything here the way I want it? Is the colors right? Is it balanced? Again, creating those colorways. All right, I think that works. I think that looks good. Again, I have an area for doing some clusters on this. I probably won't do much else. I might go ahead and add some toffee, though, to this paper just to give it some more depth. I think that's probably the thing that I want to do because I feel like these pieces are not popping off of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my toffee again. I didn't think I was going to do that, so I put it away. Where did I put my little, my guy? There it is. So I'm going to pull out my toffee and I'm going to ink up the edges of this. Again, I want it to stand out a little bit more. So by adding this edge, I think you'll see that this is really going to make it pop off the page. Okay, so just doing that one, and if I do that, I think you can see the difference in just getting that little bit of ink around the edge. It just gives it a little bit more pop of color. All right, so I'm going to go and I'm going to do a little bit more distressing, and I'm going to start adhering this down, and I will be back to do the embellishments. All right, we're almost done with this layout. So I've got everything kind of re-laid out again. I did cut one more ray because I just felt like we didn't have enough anchor balance. I have one more that I might end up putting on over here. I haven't decided yet, but I did add an additional one over here on the right side. So we're going to come back in. As you can see, I've laid out a lot of the embellishments already where I think they're going to go. But one of the things that's in this layout that's very hard to see unless you're looking at it in the catalog is they actually have, using the gel pen, they've got these white gel lines that are coming out from underneath. Now, I probably should have done that before I laid down the pictures, but again, we're just going to go with it. So I'm going to just come in and I'm going to follow the rays themselves from an angle perspective. And I'm going to come in close to the paper, whatever this is, the wood grain paper. And I'm going to just gently come up and add some of these in. So again, I'm just double checking that my pen is working because it feels like it's not working well. Like I'm not getting the ink out, but oops, sorry about that. So just coming in, putting in some of these lines, sort of following. I might try one of my other gel pens here. I've got a 5. Let's try the 10. I think I want a little bit heavier line. I can never remember which is the heaviest line and which is the lightest line. So we're just going to come in here and add those in. It's not going to show a whole lot, but just to give a little bit more emphasis here. Obviously, where I've got more color, the lines are going to show more. And sort of add those in. So just another little detail that kind of makes this layout special. Again, I might come back in over here and add just a little bit more color. And then the other thing that I didn't do is I didn't add color down here to the bottom where I've got this cluster. So I might come back in now and add a little bit more color there. Again, just trying to make those lines show a little bit and give a little more color. All right, so my clusters are pretty straightforward. I'm just following kind of what they already had. So I'm just going to move this cluster out of the way and add a little bit of color in these areas around the cluster. Like I said, a lot of ink is already in this thing, so I don't need to add any more ink. And we're going to go ahead and just add these in. So I'm going to take this piece, put some adhesive just in a few spots, and we're going to tuck it in underneath this piece, kind of where I put that that color. And then we're just going to layer these pieces on top. So I'm going to just take this, I'm going to kind of tuck that there. I'm going to take the starfish, add that right about there. I'm going to put this on 3D foam tape. So I'm going to add this and just give it a little bit of dimension so that it pops off of the those other pieces that I just laid down. So I'm going to just take a couple pieces of foam tape, cut them up, add them, just to add just a smidge of dimension there to this piece. And hopefully that won't show too much. You don't want the foam tape to show if you can avoid it. But give a little bit of that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. we'll layer that sort of on top. I think I'm going to move this over just a smidge, like so. And then this is an acrylic piece, and I do recommend using glue dots for the acrylic pieces. I think it holds better, and so I'm just going to put 4 or 5 glue dots on the back of this acrylic piece to hold it. Just so that it's nice and secure. And so that's going to kind of go on right around like that. All right, then we have our title, the beach, and so we're just going to, again, adhere this down underneath this, try and center it as best you can. I'm not popping this guy up. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I think it's got enough dimension. Just want to get enough adhesive on it. I think I'm going to bring this down just a smidge more. Right there. We'll move that. Like that. And then we have this stamp, again, that we talked about. Now, I would have to stuff this down pretty far. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to then put my adhesive on, and then it'll be a little bit easier for me to kind of get in place where I want it. So again, I'm going to tuck it behind this and sandwich it a little bit like so. Okay, so now I've got that. And the last things I have are my my seagulls that I want, and these I do want on foam tape as well. This time I'm going to see, I need some thinner foam tape than what I have, so we're going to grab our thinner one. And we're going to put some foam tape on the back of these seagulls. And actually, I think I'm going to even cut this in half itself. So again, these scissors, these non-stick scissors are great for handling things like foam tape where you've got, it's sticky and you need to have scissors release that adhesive. So that's very, very helpful. Okay, so we're going to grab 3 of these guys. Oops, there it is. See if I made that small enough. This is where tweezers sometimes are helpful. Put that down there. And then let's do one more. And then we're going to scatter these here. Okay, so that's an extra little piece. So I think we're going to put this guy kind of flying over here, and we'll do a small one here. We'll do another big one up here, and maybe one over here, like that. Okay, so that's that. Then my last thing on this left-hand side is to put our titles on. Now I need to be careful because these are going over the picture, and so what I'm going to do is I am actually going to cut some of the adhesive backing that is part of the sticker sheet, and I'm going to put that on the back of that sticker. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm just allowing this placement so that until I get my photos, this will not stick to that. And again, I'm going to add 3D foam tape as well all the way across this sticker to have it pop up. So grab that, and then we'll add just a little bit more. And I'm not going to take the 3D foam tape off of that side either. So we'll peel all of that off. So Paradise Found is kind of in the middle here. So I want to do that. Then Vitamin C, we're just going to put 3D foam tape all the way across and leave a little bit of the 3D foam tape on that one end so that it doesn't stick to the picture. So that's going to go on top here. Make sure that I'm okay on that. And then lastly is Beach Bum. And Beach Bum, I just need to put 3D foam tape on it, and I don't need to worry about the sticker piece because it's going to not cover my photo. So we can take all of it off. If we actually stick it on our sticker correctly. Made it a little bit too big. There we go. And then we'll put that underneath. Right there. Okay, and there's our Beach Bum. So those all came from our sticker sheet. And then lastly, we have this last little cluster over here. And I did take the full strength of that paprika coral, and that's what I'm going to do here. And actually, I think I do want to pop this guy up. Actually, you know what? No, I think I'm not. Everything else is popped up there, so I think I'm going to leave this down. So go like that. Then we're going to put our starfish like so. Do our shell. That. Do our other shell. Here, and then our last shell piece. And we pretty much have a finished layout at this point. I probably am not going to do anything else to it. I've got a couple of spaces where I can do some journaling if I want to. I could change this into a journaling block. I've got the I could actually do journaling kind of around the edges here if I wanted to. I've got some space over here. So again, I've got a few places that I can add journaling. I could also add some sequins in here. I do have some old Bluebell sequins. I could pull those out and add those to this. As some additional embellishments, which is, they did do that. They've got some colored gems here. I don't think I have any of that color that are in my stash right now, so probably won't add those. But again, that, you know, there's options here where I can add a few more embellishments if I want to, or I can just leave it as is. I do think that I'm just looking to see, do I want to add that last ray here for balance? And I think I do. So I do think I'm going to put that there. And then that way I've got, again, a little bit more of those anchors that are part of it, trying to slip it underneath this picture here. Try and get that there. But anyway, I will play with that some more. But there we go. So there is my version of the Cape Cod, the beach layout, turned into a 2-page layout. Hopefully you got something out of this and that you really got some ideas on how to take a 1-page and turn it into a 2-page. And if not, again, gave you the measurements so that you can make that 1-page layout without too much trouble, meaning 1.25 by 5.5 strips that you can cut in half and create, again, this beautiful layout using our new Cape Cod papers. Hopefully you like this video. If you do, go ahead and hit the like button below. You can subscribe as well and see each time I have a new video up. And have a wonderful day.